What is going on, everybody? This is Pam with 2200 Taps. I took quite a break, as some of y'all know. We had Christmas, we had New Year's, we had to get sober, we had to come to Jesus, which I love. But all joking aside, I'm super excited about today's show because I have a friend of mine I've been trying to get on for quite a while. And how long ago did I meet you?
Goodness, we've known each other for 4 years at least.
For about 4 years?
Yeah, 4.
I am sitting with Amy Rainwater Pekacek.
Yes.
I got it. She is recently married.
Yep.
So, hi, Larry, if you're out there listening.
Hey, Larry. Hey, baby.
This woman has got one hell of a story, and because what we do is share these stories, of amazing people that have been able to overcome all this. You just can't make this stuff up,
No.
And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. I adore your kids.
Oh, thanks. I do too. I'm kind of fond of them.
Nicholas and Aaron.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're doing really good things.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't wait to see what the future holds for all y'all.
Thank you, Pam.
For sure. But Amy, I kind of want to share with the listeners, take them on your journey, whatever that is, whatever you want to take us on. I know your story.
You do.
It's not my place to tell, which is why I'm so grateful you're here. Really a dream come true for this podcast in particular. And I know your story, and I was able to kind of be just a little part of it.
You were.
Very subtle part of it. And, we'll just go right into it. What is on your heart today that you really just want to share? And what have you been up to since? I mean, we could talk about your background, whatever you want to do, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah. So, the great thing is you and I have spent some time together today, and we've kind of had some conversations about this. And with my story, it could go in any number of directions, but I believe that, we both agree that my spouse's suicide is the part of the story that would be most beneficial for your listeners today. So that's where we'll pick up.
Okay. And I do need to just let you know, for the listeners, this is a very heavy topic. Yes. If you have children or just people in the car that aren't ready to hear this, feel free to listen to other episodes, but I would encourage you to stick with us, because as hard as this may be to hear, Amy's definitely a brave woman to really just put this out there. And we're not going to stay in it. We're going to really show you how she's been able to overcome this, because
right.
I told her today, like, I've got a family member that is still stuck in the pain of her husband's suicide, and it's been like 15 years.
Right.
And
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, and it's been like literally a couple years for you.
Yeah. It's about 3.5. I'm about 3.5.
3.5.
Mm-hmm.
God, it went by quick.
Yeah, I know.
So that story of redemption is just beautiful. But I would caution you to just, whatever's on your heart as a listener, what you want to do, stick with us. So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Amy.
Well, so I guess I'll give some of the background information. My husband, Michael, committed suicide in August 3.5 years ago. He and I met in high school. We were high school sweethearts. He played football and baseball, and I was on dance line. And it was the type of story that, they make TV shows and movies about, right? So we dated in high school. We had the breakup. Kept in contact some, saw each other some over the years. But went our different ways. He got married and had children, and I got married and had children, and we both were divorced. And at some point, I was 39, and I guess he was 41. We met back up and started dating, and the rest was history. We got married. And,
it's all right.
When we got married, I would have never dreamed that I would be standing where I am today. I did not see any of the issues or any of the demons that he dealt with on a daily basis until I married him and moved into the home with him. He was this charismatic, larger-than-life personality with this big, huge smile, and and a laugh that made everybody in the room around him laugh. Just charismatic is the big word that comes to mind when I think about Michael. But he was always joking and laughing and smiling and wanting everyone else in the world to be happy. And so he picked on people and played on them, and it was always in fun. And that's who he truly wanted to be. But he had his own story and his own struggles in life from things that happened in his childhood and throughout his life. And so behind closed doors, all of the mask would come off. You know, you talk about mask, and I've heard on some of your other podcasts where you talk about people wearing masks, and that mask would come off and the other side of him would come out. And I remember one of the most significant things that I remember is we were going to pastoral counseling at one point in our marriage and brought the kids in. So we brought Nick and Aaron into the counselor and the pastor. One of the things Nick said was, he said, when Michael would come home from work and we could hear his truck pulling into the garage and he walked in the door from the garage, everyone in the house knew what the night would be like the moment he walked in, whether we were going to have a good night and all stay in the kitchen or living room talking and laughing and having fun, or whether the kids would go to their room, shut their door, and not come back out. And it was all based off of his demeanor when he walked into the room.
Wow. So in those moments as a mom, and what was that like? Like, did you notice that the kids were kind of separating themselves from you, or how was that for you? Well,
because my first marriage was an abusive one,
mm-hmm.
You know, I thought to myself, how in the world did I get myself back into this situation? And my kids, how did I get them back? Because I didn't believe in divorce. I stayed in an abusive marriage for 7 or 8 years because I didn't believe in divorce. Finally realized that, yeah, it's okay to get divorced and God's not going to condemn me to hell.
Right.
But that was part of my story, right? And so when I came into this marriage with Michael, he wasn't necessarily physically abusive, but the emotional, the mental, the verbal, it was there. And so there was wrath. There was a lot of yelling. There was, and it wasn't even just yelling at me necessarily. He might not yell at me, or he might not yell at the kids. He might, but most of the time it wasn't that. It was just yelling over nothing. Somebody driving their car through our circle driveway, or the delivery man putting the box in the wrong spot. Something that happened at work, and it was just an endless rant day after day after day. And it wore on us. And I would say that my daughter Erin was the most affected by it, other than me, obviously. I was affected by it, but she was more affected by it than Nick because he was pretty hard on her. And so I did see some of the isolation and some of the separation of mine and her relationship during those years.
Now, we met... kind of backtrack, we met through Pathways Core training, and we've talked about that training on numerous podcasts.
Right.
And for my listeners, I find that a lot of people that have gone through the training are ready to talk about this hard stuff, because that's what we do, you know. So I was able to have a front row seat to when you came through.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about that? Or
Sure. So Michael and I had been married for about a year, and I was already at a point to where I didn't see how I could continue in this marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And before we got married, I lived in some townhouses, and a lady named Erica had moved in next to me, and we had actually gone to college together and didn't know each other. So we'd been down in college, and so then she was my neighbor. We became friends, and we became Facebook friends. Only time I ever talked to her really was going to the mailbox, or whenever you know, you were coming and going or whatever. But over the course of that year during my marriage with Michael, I saw these posts on her Facebook page go from being down and sad, or whatever that word would be to describe her post before. And then the transformation of just seeing this light and this vibrance and this joy. And I didn't know where that was coming from. I knew she had been going to Dallas a lot on the weekends. Mm-hmm. So I just sent her a message on Facebook one day, and I said, hey, do your trips to Dallas have anything to do with this transformation I see in your life? And she was like, absolutely yes. And so she told me about pathways. And because I was at a point and 1 year into that marriage where I was ready to throw in the towel, I was looking for something, and I was looking for what I saw in her. So I went through the training. That's a kind of a funny story. I didn't tell, for work, I travel a lot, like 75 to 80% of the time I was traveling back then. And so I didn't even tell my husband or my kids I was going to this training. I didn't tell them I was going on a work trip either. I just told them I had to be in Dallas, and they didn't ask why. And, they didn't ask because I might be in Nashville one day or Pensacola or Alabama or who knows where. So I just said I have to be in Dallas. And I went, and Erica showed up with this, I'm just going to say, she just gave me this big, huge rose. And I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to get that into my house without my husband thinking I'm having an affair, right? So I told him about the training and asked him to go, and he went the very next month. So we actually both went through the training. And then my son did, and then my daughter did the teen version.
And I bring up the training pretty quickly in this conversation because that was really just the beginning of our relationship. And Erica was actually in my class. So I got to witness her transformation,
right?
Which is really cool. But the training is kind of where everything really starts for you when we talk about this story in particular. And usually, like, guests are like, "Hey, I had the training, and I've hit my barriers, I've slayed my dragons, I'm good, but now I can maintain." Or like they've already hit that train wreck, and we know more are coming. But I don't think anybody ever saw this one coming after yours.
No, absolutely not. And that's what I used to tell people was that, life happened to me, got me to the point of going into that training, but had it not been for the tools that I got and my incredibly strong faith in God, I don't know that I would be where I am today.
So you guys went through the training, graduated. What was like for you and the kids after that?
Well, we got hit with some things right off the bat. I won't go into all those details, but we got hit with some things right off the bat, and we learned a lot of valuable tools in the training, but he never really incorporated them into his life. In fact, a lot of times he used them against me and make fun of them. And whenever I would try to use one of our tools in our relationship, it was used as a weapon against me. So that's when I decided to do the pastoral counseling or asked him if he would be willing to do that, and he agreed. In fact, we did it together as a couple. He did it on his own, and then, like I said earlier, we did it as a family. But for me, what happened was before I went through that training, I didn't know my own value and I didn't know my own worth. And so I was willing to put up with mistreatment. And after going through the training, I realized that, I'm valuable and I'm worthy of love and respect. And I'm not getting that at home. I've already talked about some of the things that happened. There were a lot of things that happened, and there were a lot of things that I found about after he passed away that happened. I mean, he was basically living a double life. I'm fortunate to have a really good relationship with his biological children and his ex-wife. And, the thing that's just so bizarre, I mean, it truly is like a movie, is he was living a double life. He was seeing them every day and taking off his wedding band and going over there and playing daddy and husband, and then coming home to me and telling me and my friends and my family and my kids and people at church and people at Pathways that he never got to see his children, but he was seeing them every day. And then he was hiding things in the mail, having mail diverted, hiding money, just on and on and on. And so it was just not a good it was not a good situation at all. I have a lot of good things that I can say about him, and it's, the anger and the fear and the resentment and all of those feelings that you have when you go through something like that are gone now. I've dealt with them, but it's still so hard for me to wrap my mind around exactly how many things that happened that were just like, are you kidding me? How could this have happened?
Now, I remember getting a phone call. I'm kind of leading up to the events, which you tell it however you want to tell it. I remember getting a phone call from a friend of ours. It was like, "Hey, I need Erica's number."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Sure." Gave her the number, thought nothing of it. And then a few days later, I found out what had happened. But that was it. And I knew you needed support. So we all just, we drove to your location to be there for you and the kids and stuff. And that was my little, moment in time with you and your family that I can share. And it was, again, just to see where you are to where you are today is really something special. But if you want and if you choose, however you want to share it, could you take us through what happened?
Sure. So at some point, he and I had been separated. We got back together and things didn't change. They continued. And I had made the decision that I could no longer live this way. I couldn't live this way for me, or not couldn't, but I wouldn't. I would no longer live this way for me or for my kids. And so I made a plan. Told some close family and family members and friends about it, and got an apartment and moved out and left him. And I did it that way because he was so unpredictable and explosive. I knew that if I told him I was leaving, it would be a scary, violent situation. And so I just left. And during our separation, of course, we continued to talk, and I continued to encourage him to go to counseling. A lot of things happened. He threatened suicide a couple of times while we were separated, and I remember being in Alabama, and I was on the phone with a mutual friend of ours who was calling 911, and I was on the phone with Michael, keeping him on the phone long enough for the police to get there and prevent him from killing himself that night. But we dealt with that a couple of times, so I had 2 wellness checks on him, and he had actually gone to the hospital, and the nurses said that as long as he denied anything was wrong, they couldn't keep him. But we were still talking and trying to work things out. And so this one day, the day that it happened, we had agreed to meet and talk, and it was the first time that we had officially met other than talking and texting on the phone during our separation. We had agreed to meet and have a conversation. And so he came over to my house, and I had written down some things that had to happen for us to reconcile. He really wanted to reconcile, and I said, I had a time limit on there, and you have to go to seek medical help, and just a list of things that were between us that he needed to do to show me that he was trying to get the help that he needed to be a healthy, happy person. And I was trying to help him through a lot of that. I was constantly encouraging him. I was encouraging him to see his own value and his own worth, and to love himself, to get medical, spiritual help, whatever needed. And I was willing to do anything that I could do to help him, but he wasn't willing to help himself. So this one night, this one day when we had this conversation, I can only guess that it didn't go the way he wanted it to go. He wanted us to reconcile that day, I'm pretty sure. And so he left. And when he left, he didn't leave. He started banging on the doors and the windows and yelling and screaming outside of my house, and wanting me to open the door back up, and just the tone in his voice and the way that he was banging on the doors and the walls, it was terrifying. I was scared. And so I actually went into my bathroom and shut and locked the door, because if he was able to look through any slats and like blinds, or peek through windows of the door or whatever, I didn't want him to see where I was. And had my phone with me. One of my friends text messaged me, and she was just asking me about a girls' trip that we had planned. Hey, are you still on? And I remember just texting back, yeah. hit and send, and then the very next text I sent, I'm currently being terrorized. And she had already knew that we were having some issues in the marriage, and we were separated, and she knew the situation that was going on with him being explosive and all of that kind of stuff. And so she immediately encouraged me to call 911. I wasn't going to call 911 until she sent this one particular text, and it said, what would you tell me to do?
Wow.
And she was absolutely right. I mean, I would have told anybody I cared about to call the police, get some help. But I wasn't willing to do that for myself. And so that was absolutely what I needed to hear. And I called 911. By the time the police got there, he had already left. And so the police were there for a long time asking me questions. And I lived in Bossier City, Louisiana at the time, Bossier Parish. And they had a new law that had enacted that whenever there was domestic violence in the home, that they had to go through it was a huge long list of questions they had to ask me. So they went through all the questions. They searched the perimeter. They were probably there for 45 minutes to an hour, and then they left. So when they left, I picked my phone back up, and I had some missed phone calls and texts from friends, and I went and sat out on my balcony outside and was responding to my friends. And one friend in particular had texted me and was, pretty worried about me. I could tell through the text. And so instead of just texting her back, I decided to call her. So I, stood up, went back inside of the house to talk to her on the phone, and called her, and went and sat down at my kitchen table. As soon as I sat down, she answered the phone, and he came busting in the back door all at the same time. I mean, like, I sat down, she says hello, he's busting through. And as soon as she says hello, I say, he's here. And that's all I said. And she said, who is, Michael? And I said, yes. And by that time, he had already reached me and took the phone out of my hand. Didn't see the phone again until after everything was over. So he took the phone out of my hand, and I was sitting in the chair. He was standing in front of me, and he was talking to me. And I had experienced talking with people who were unreasonable from my first marriage. And so I was using that body language, using that tone of voice, saying everything's going to be okay, and trying to talk to him. And he said, no, you don't understand. And he took a step back, and out of his back, jean pants, he pulled out a gun. And so, I freaked out and ran for the front door, and he blocked me from it. Ran for the back door, he blocked me from it. Ran to the bedroom window, had it halfway up. He came over and shut it, and the next thing I did was run into the bathroom. And he came into the bathroom behind me, and stood in the bathtub, and I was standing in the bathtub. Had my back to him. I didn't know what he was going to do. All I knew is he had a gun. Didn't know what he was going to do. And he was talking to me, and he kept telling me to look at him. He kept saying, look at me, Amy, look at me, Amy. He said that over and over. And just like, this about me, I don't like to watch violence on TV. Mm-hmm. He knew that about me. And the one thing I remember saying was, Michael, I don't even watch this stuff on TV. Why do I want to watch it now? He was yelling. And so at some point, very quickly, once I got into the bathtub, we heard banging on the front door. So my friend who I'd called and told her that Michael was there, immediately hung up the phone, called 911. And the police officers who had just left interviewing me, like not even 5 minutes before, they were right back. They hadn't even gotten out of the neighborhood. They were that close. They came back. And he said something like, dang, Amy, why did you have to call 911? And I said, I didn't. You had my phone. And that's when I would say he went from being desperate to being out of his mind when he heard the cops. He picked up the phone, texted his ex-wife, something about the kids. And I remember saying to myself out loud over and over and over, God help me, Jesus be with me, just over and over and over and over. And
you're good.
You know, by this time was sitting down in the bathtub, had my eyes closed and my hands over my eyes, and it was dark in the bathroom. Like that, like if you close your eyes and you put your hands over, it's dark. But at one point, that darkness went to the blackest, darkest darkness. You could even feel the darkness. I could feel the darkness. And in that moment, I knew he was about to shoot the gun. Didn't know if he was shooting me, him, who was getting shot, but I knew the gun was about to go off, and I heard the gun go off. He was about a foot in front of me. So I screamed 3 times. Didn't know what to do. The cops were out there. They weren't busting in like they do in the movies. I was actually waiting for the cops to come get me. They didn't bust in. I have no idea how it felt like an hour. It was probably 15 seconds. I finally jump up. I jumped over him, ran out, opened the door, and there were 2 guns pointed at me. And they were like, get out, get out, get out. So I ran out, and they ran in front of me. About that time, I collapsed and looked up, and I see my little daughter walking up. She had arrived at the exact moment where she did not hear the gunshot, but she heard me scream. So God protected her from hearing the gunshot. You have to give a statement to police and things like that when this happens. And they ran my phone. They, made sure that my story matched up. And they took my phone. I remember them telling me that I could leave and that they would give me my phone back. But I was like, no, I need my phone. I mean, I got to call people, so I need my phone. And so I hung around for a long time, and oh gosh, just so much happened. But there was one point where I remember looking at myself, and I looked at my hands, I looked at my arms, I looked at my clothes. I actually got up and went to the bathroom and looked at my hair in the mirror and my face. And he shot himself 1 foot in front of me. And there wasn't a splatter of blood drop anywhere on me. I feel like God protected. He had a bubble around me. My brother is really into guns, right? He makes his own bullets and shoots and hunts and all that kind of stuff. And, he told me in that space of a bathroom, he said that, I should have been, quote unquote, deaf for an hour or 2 and had ringing in my ears for a couple of days. My hearing wasn't impacted at all. And when I stood up and jumped over him, I didn't see anything except for the back of his, his calves and his feet. That's all I saw. So I never saw anything that happened to the rest of his body or what that looked like. So I don't have that memory. So I feel like God protected my eyes, and I'm still here. I'm alive and I'm breathing, and He didn't kill me. So I feel like God protected my life. Immediately afterwards, I was pretty mad at God. But pretty quickly, when that realization hit me, all I could think of was, oh my God. In that moment, I thought you had left me, but He didn't. He was with me even in that moment, protecting me.
So, try not to lose it over here too. In the midst of that, and once the funeral, because we went to the funeral,
right?
And it was very surreal. It was very. I'll just say that not to make it about me, because this is very much about you, but we'll talk about it here in a little bit. But seeing him in the coffin, and not knowing what he was going to look like, I know that was something big for you. We don't have to talk about that, but I know that was a struggle.
Yeah.
How was it knowing that you had so much support that day? And I know we have it's almost like you're in a constant state of, like, if you've ever been drunk, like you're buzzing. That's the only way I can explain it to people. When you lose somebody significantly, you're just like in this, it's this weird feeling. If you can remember, how was that for you to just kind of going through that and just knowing you had your support around you?
You know, I still to this day can't believe how many people stepped up and showed up and supported me. People from all over the country came, flew in, drove in, California, Texas. I was living in Louisiana. My son was a missionary at the time, and I can't remember which country he was in, but it was halfway around the world. He flew home. But the number of people who showed up to support me and my kids it was crazy.
And since then, because we've talked about it, where it takes some years to get closure around something like this. What have you done to not expedite the process, so to speak? Because it's very much, every person has their own experience with it. But within 3.5 years, and you're a completely different ray of sunshine, I should say, because now you're remarried. And you've got so much good stuff going on, big changes. You keep moving forward. What did you do to get to this point so quickly, so to speak?
Well, I am a very strong, faith-filled person. Not religious or, all about the law. I'm all about grace. But I truly surrendered to God and gave it to Him. And, Pam, I was on my knees, cut off at the knees. Is how I felt. And you don't really have a choice. I remember somebody asking me like 1.5 years ago, Amy, how are you standing here today and you're not just, a mess? And I have my days, don't get me wrong, still to today. I still have, there are triggers and things that affect me. But you don't have a choice. I didn't feel like I had a choice. Michael made his choice. He chose to take his life. But I had to choose to live mine. And I get to choose to live mine, and I do choose to live mine. And so every day, it was, I could either stay stuck in that moment and let that moment destroy me, and he would be taking my life away as well. Like, even though he didn't physically shoot me, if I chose to stay in that bathroom with him, he would have stolen my life. But I have to stand up and say, this is my life. I'm going to live my life. And you know what? That was probably one of the single biggest lessons in life that I've ever learned, is that it truly is a choice. It's a choice, our choice every single day, whether we're going to be happy or sad or joyful or depressed, whether we're going to live or we're going to waste our life. And it solidified something within me that I'm going to live my life. I'm going to live it out loud. I'm going to live it on purpose. I'm going to live it happy. And I'm going to have joy. I'm going to choose joy in my heart and in my life every single day. And I do. I have bad days just like everybody else. But the amazing ability that this mindset has given me to just be able to put that down and choose to be happy in spite of circumstances, no matter what they are, it has to be faith. That's the only thing I can give it to.
That's amazing. I kind of going back real quick, so we're not so far away from kind of what I talked about. I called you, and I talked about it on my podcast, but I didn't say it was you. It was for my episode when my grandma passed away, and I'm like, I hadn't seen her. I didn't know what she was going to look like. I was freaking out, and it was you that I called. I remember I called you because I'm like, who would know, like, because I'm struggling. And I thought of you because of what you'd gone through. And you picked up the phone, and we must have talked like a half hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you prepare yourself to see somebody that you loved or love, and you don't know what they're going to look like? So you gave me some really good medicine around that.
What'd I say?
I can't remember.
Really good medicine.
I can't remember, but I know your faith's always played a big part in that. And I just, man, I really wish, again, it's just that time when somebody dies and you get the medicine, you use it, but I really don't remember. But I know what you told me impacted me.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that. So in your tragedy, there was a form of medicine for me personally in that moment where it's scary. Mm-hmm. It's terrifying. You know, you hear horror stories all the time. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But we're moving along pretty good. I kind of want to, breathe. Let's breathe a little bit, take the pressure off, like they say, right? Mm-hmm. And because from all of this and your success and the life that you've been able to rebuild and all this good stuff, you created. I'm shifting big gears now.
Yeah, you are. I know where you're going.
I'm shifting big gears because, man, I don't even like staying in the heavy stuff. Yeah. If you listeners are still with us, thank you. Breathe, because we are going to talk about some really good stuff now. You created a Facebook group.
I did.
And if you don't know what it is, would you mind sharing what it is? Because it's the Women Inspiring Women Facebook group.
Yep.
And within a few weeks, how many?
Actually, that was just a few months ago. That was, I can't remember exactly when, August maybe of this year.
It's still pretty
new,
but the amount of attraction that you've gotten, you guys, Amy, and I think I'm even able to do it. I don't know how, but there's an admin on there. I'm not an admin, but I'm like your top fan or something like that. Yeah. It's something kind of cool. It's Women Inspiring Women.
Yes.
And you do have rules and guidelines around that, which I absolutely love.
All right.
Because things can go sideways pretty quick.
Yep.
What inspired you to do that? And how have you seen just what it's done for people like so far?
Yeah. So, many of us are on social media. Mm-hmm. And I have been for years, I guess convicted is the word I'll use, about what I watch, what I read, what I listen to, positive in, positive out. Mm-hmm. I can remember in middle school doing an FCA speech in front of high schoolers and telling them about music and, being careful of what you listen to. So on social media, I was really discouraged at all the negativity and how people just attack each other on social media, and everything you read's bad news. People are mad at each other. It's political and divisive, and that's all that social media is sometimes. And I just remember for a long time thinking, I wish somebody would just make a positive platform where we had positive things. And I was literally sitting in my kitchen one day and I thought, why not me? Why not now? And I grabbed my laptop, opened it up, and that moment I made that page. And my friend Leanne was coming over. We were going to swim and cook out and stuff. And she arrived right about the time I was creating it, and told her the original name that I had picked out for it, which I don't even remember what it was now. And she was like, I don't know about that. And then I said, well, what about Women Inspiring Women? She said, that's it. And so that's how I got the name. And the purpose of it was to bring positivity into your timeline or into your scrolling, your newsfeed, whatever, for you to be able to just scroll and read things that are positive instead of everything being negative. At least I know not everything's negative. We see, the animals and the kids and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of negativity on social media. Yeah. And so that was the purpose of that group. I've gotten so much positive feedback about it. People have contacted me on the phone, on email, inboxed. I was on a radio program about it a couple of months ago. I've just so much positive feedback. There's one lady in particular who said she had, how can a Facebook group do what I'm about to tell you is amazing. She said, I had dealt with depression for years. And she said, I stumbled upon this group, and every single day I go in and read the stuff. And she said, I'm at the point now to where I'll actually face the day, put my face out there on social media, going and having lunch with my friends and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, are you kidding me? From social media?
That's awesome.
I mean,
that's awesome.
It's awesome. It is.
And you have, what, 3,000 followers?
Or there's a little over that right now, yeah.
About 3,000. But that number grew pretty fast.
It did. It grew really fast at first, and then it has slowed down now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we were at 1,000 within a week.
That's insane. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And it's people worldwide.
Yep.
You said, right?
Mm-hmm.
From different countries?
Multiple countries. I'm not even going to try to name them all right now, but there are probably close to 20 different countries represented, and people from all over the United States for sure, and Canada.
Wow. I mean, I loved it so much. I invited my mom to it.
Yay.
She's part of it.
That's awesome. My mom is too.
That's awesome.
Go moms.
Yes. Oh, man. And it's cool. It's just like, somebody puts inspiring things or something that happened to them, or I was going to say a flyer, but I've been making flyers all week, so I'm like my head's over there. But just not a meme, but just something uplifting.
Yeah, quotes, sayings.
And it's funny because I rarely get on social media. I do it for like the podcast and my business, but other than that, I'm not really involved in a lot of the likes and shares and this and that. I'm not addicted to it, which thank God.
Right. Exactly.
But when I see somebody from Women Inspiring Women, I get the notification somebody posted it, and number two, it's really cool. It's consistently inspiring.
Right.
Also, the page is absolutely doing its purpose, and I know you guys aren't y'all don't hesitate to kick people off.
Right. How do you know that?
Because let's just say the police, they monitor closely.
Yes.
And people go to Facebook jail forever, apparently, on that one. So, and it's good. It's good.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't say every day, but several times a week, I scroll through and make sure everything is on the up and up. Pam, multiple times every week, I have to just delete posts, and I'll notify them because, I think one of the biggest things is we have a lot of people who are trying to promote their services, and a lot of that is actually people from outside of the United States. I see that a lot.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that people aren't using it as a page to take advantage of others, but rather to inspire and uplift others. It's just a community. It's not there for people to try to sell or promote themselves, which that's a lot of the things that I remove are self-promotion.
Yeah. And it's not to say that you won't encourage that, because I have seen posts where you're like, hey, if you do a business, what is it that you do?
Right.
Because I've even tapped into that one. Like, we've all just done it. But I love how y'all police that page, because it can go sideways pretty quickly.
Right.
I like to call them keyboard ninjas.
Yeah. People
get pissed off and they're like, why are you calling me a keyboard ninja?
And that's one of the great things I love about this group too, is that, on the broader social media platform, people will just put each other down for anything, right? I think sometimes people argue just to argue. And that's not going to happen, and this is a safe spot for us.
I love it. And I love what you just said. It's a safe spot. That's hard to find. And like you said about that lady, like sometimes, because we are on social media, that's our only safe place.
Yeah.
Maybe for some.
For some, it might be.
So thank you for creating that.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to look in the mirror sometimes and be like, why not me?
Right.
Why not me? If it's like, pardon me, like I curse a little bit, but I've been good the past few podcasts. But people they'll bitch and complain that this doesn't happen and why this, why that. Like, why don't you do something about it?
Exactly.
Oh, well. No, do something.
Well, that's what I was doing. I was thinking, why doesn't somebody do this? And then it just hit, well, why not me?
You have a niche, though. You have a niche for connecting with people and connecting people.
I love people.
I know you do. Well, we could keep... Well, actually, this podcast, we're pretty much done for the most part.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. My podcasts usually run like an hour, but sometimes it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. You're welcome anytime, just so you know.
Oh, awesome.
Anytime. Come, promote, whatever. Oh, of course. I'm a little rusty because I've been gone for like almost a month from behind the mic. There is one question I do have for you.
What's that?
And it's one question I ask everybody.
Okay.
So we may just hit this hour mark, guys. Let's see. Music.
Yeah.
How has music, I always get this jumbled up. Has music helped you or helped save your life? And if so, how?
Man, I love music. I do. Music is one tool that, it just consumes me. You know what I mean? I can get very emotional, very much in my heart, very authentic, raw. And my goodness, anybody who knows me well knows that I will just send songs out to people. Just when I hear a song, if the lyrics remind me of somebody, I'm going to send it to them. Sometimes it's me, and there are times that I'll get on one particular song, and whatever the message is in that song, I'll listen to it over and over and over for, maybe a week or a month or whatever it is. And so, one example is right after Michael died, there's a song by Matthew West called Strong Enough that I had to listen to constantly because I wasn't strong enough to handle that on my own. And if anybody knows the lyrics to that song, it's really, truly what got me through and helped me realize that I didn't have to do it by myself. I wasn't alone. Gosh, there's a lot of songs that have, I go through different phases. I like country, I like rock, I like Christian music. I like pretty much everything, and I'll go through phases of what I listen to. And it's amazing to me how at the lowest lows of my life that I can just soak myself in Christian music, and that is what really helps keep me from drowning. Right now I'm kind of in a country kick. Probably.
I wonder why.
Probably because my husband is a country boy. But yeah, so right now I'm listening to country, but I still listen to my Christian music when I need it. It's like my medicine. This is my self-prescribing to myself.
Yeah. And that's why we do what we do, put music to people's stories and do these podcasts. And we're finding out quickly that the common thing that all my guests have is that music has helped save their life, mm-hmm. or has impacted them in some way. One of my guests, Natalie Nicole, shout out to Natalie, I love you, girl. She didn't cry until the very last few minutes of her episode. And I asked her the same question.
Yeah.
And she got choked up. And it was a powerful moment to witness because that's how powerful music is.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to make sure I got that question in before I left. I was like, I know I'm missing something. And I'm on my cheat sheet. But all right, guys, I think we are wrapping up. Amy, I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
You're amazing.
Pam.
Absolutely amazing. You inspire the hell out of me.
Oh. And
I'm glad you're in Texas now.
Yay, Texas.
So we can go out and have some fun. Right. But yeah, so you guys, if you want to check out more of Matthew West, right? Yeah. I'm going to put a shout out to him because I listen to Christian contemporary music, all that stuff. I love Mercy Me, Matthew West.
Big Daddy Weave.
Big Daddy Weave. I love me some Big Daddy. Check him out, But yeah, until then, stay tuned because we got some more guests coming that, I have a feeling this season's going to be a lot of tears. A lot more tears than the first season.
Yeah.
And a surprise special guest who is a celebrity in the animation world.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Going big time.
Big time. Yeah, she has agreed to be on the show, and I'm not going to reveal who it is just yet till we get closer.
Can't wait to find out.
It's going to be amazing. But thank you guys. I love my listeners. If you're listening, make sure to subscribe on SoundCloud. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, website, 2200taps.com, and get ready for one hell of a season.